brand that does care about this, and then you're putting in the time and energy to source the sustainable and the organic, all the different practices, right, that Novi would be able to help them with. There's also then really a limited mechanism for that information to flow through to the actual end consumer.
Exactly. Yep. I think so. That's a lot of that is the thought process behind our strategy, and effectively our strategy from a product perspective, but also from a business model perspective. To flow that in through to the end consumer, you have to think about, well, who's actually relaying that information? Sometimes it's the brand directly, but a lot of the times it's the retailer. And we know that lots of brands rely on their distribution partners like Target and Walmart and, but also Sephora in the beauty sense, to be sharing this information direct to the consumer about sustainability. And in order to do that, the retailer is going to require proof. And so a lot of that proof comes, well, where's the data on where you source this stuff? And that's actually really hard to get at. And that's exactly why we've built solutions across the ecosystem so that we can pull all the way from the raw material supplier all the way through to the retailer, to the end consumer.
Yeah, we got to dig into that, right? So, because I think what you're describing here, it's actually something I was talking about with Adrian from Miracle a few weeks ago, is, to kind of say, right? I mean, in the supply chain, and what you see with these B2B marketplaces is there's multiple layers to this. We're kind of calling it like a two-step marketplace model, and you guys might be honestly one of the best examples of this, frankly. So could you just unpack that further? You're saying, you have the ingredient suppliers involved, you have the brands, and now the retailers, and you've built some kind of, business model around this. What is that? Like, how does that actually work? How did you actually put that all together?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, because at the core, we are a marketplace, but the B2B marketplace concept in our context is much different than you would think about it from your traditional B2C or even other successful B2B concepts. And so it is because you have multiple stakeholders involved leading up to a purchase. And so what that fundamentally means is, a brand. Well, let's actually start at the retailer. A retailer is setting the standards. They're saying, in order to sell with this symbol of Target Clean or whatever it is, that you can elevate yourself and get more marketing, ability in the market, you have to meet these standards. And so they're setting a lot of the regulation. And a lot of that is because, especially in the US, there isn't a lot of regulation. And so when there's a vacuum, there's going to be other players that are going to come in and insert it. So there's regulation at the highest sense being set. And so then brands are saying, I have to set requirements around the product I want to develop. It needs to be compliant with these regulations. It also needs to meet like the story I want to tell, the unique branding message that I have. It also needs to be, shiny, or it needs to be moisturizing. They have all of these things, and they're going to give those requirements to a partner, which is usually a third party, to formulate it. And the formulator is going to be a chemist, and they're going to try and translate all that and say like, ooh, well, these interesting chemicals, if I make my cookie in this way, it's going to be, amazing. And then they're going to send that to their procurement manager, and the procurement manager is going to say, oh, well, you chose that ingredient. It costs $1 bajillion. Like, you need to find something cheaper. And, all of those people are involved in actually bringing this product to market. And so if you ignore anyone in that chain, it starts to fall down, because you can build point solutions, but at the end of the day, you're not helping the brand get the best material in their product. And so what we've done is built products to help with that formulation process, to help in the context of formulation, how do I find materials that are relevant to that formula? And we've built products to then help the brand take that information and just pass it back to the retailer. And that's really powerful, because then the retailer is able to say like, oh, I trust that product meets these standards, and I don't then have to do all of the work and auditing and build that in-house myself. And, all of that then brings value to the supplier, because they're getting visibility into who wants to buy their materials, unlike they've ever had before, and getting access up the chain to the retailer, which is a really coveted thing for them to get access to, largely because those standards and those regulations are ever changing and they want to remain relevant. They want to be able to say like, ooh, you can buy my ingredient because it will comply with Target Clean. And so, yeah, we've been very thoughtful in how we engage and build products to address all the stakeholders, but ultimately drive that connectivity across the chain.
It's super interesting, and I think it's actually the start. I mean, you've been at this for many years, so so it's not the start, but I think it's setting a model for a number of other verticals. If you look across, the world of B2B distribution and the supply chain,